It would have been the largest grocery store merger in U.S. history, but now it's all over. I'm Susan Choi, and you're watching FI News Review. We're going to talk about the big news that has been on a lot of minds and a lot of screens. Kroger officially ending the $24.6 billion agreement to acquire Albertsons, and Albertsons suing Kroger for not putting its, quote, best efforts forward. We are going to unpack everything today with our special guest, the supermarket guru, Phil Lempert. Phil, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Susan, thanks so much for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you on. Let's get this started. Quite a lot to go through. What a storm of news happening surrounding this failed merger. Kroger, officially ending this deal. Albertsons walking away first and suing Kroger for, quote, not putting its best efforts forward. And Kroger actually hitting back at Albertsons, claiming that they committed repeated intentional material breaches and that they interfered too much in the process. Phil, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, this is really ugly, and it's going to get worse. There's no question in my mind. And there's a whole bunch of things that we didn't have clues to up until the last earnings call, when Rodney McMullen, for the first time, said, we don't need a merger. We can still be successful without a merger. So that was the first clue that I had that something was amiss. Now, we don't know what was going on behind the scenes. We thought that Rodney and Vivek were on the same page. Everything was going smoothly. And it was just really Lina Khan and the FTC and these 9 attorney generals who were getting in the way. But the reality is that from day one, there were so many problems with this merger. Number one, the amount of stores that overlapped between Kroger and Albertsons was problematic. Now, and we'll talk about this in a second, when Ahold was looking at Albertsons, not an issue, because what they wanted to do is move west where Albertsons had a foothold, and they wouldn't have had the problem. But that deal fell apart. Now, that deal might still come back. Who knows? But when we look at this deal, not only was the store overlap a problem, but then also C&S, taking on almost 600 stores. They're not a retailer. We saw the same problem happen with SuperValu some years ago. Being a distributor is very different than being a retailer. Now, some people could say that C&S could handle it. They had the right people in place, but still that was one of the FTC concerns. Then the other thing that was really a signal to me that came out during the trial is that Albertsons is typically 10 to 12% higher priced than Kroger is. Now, that was a surprise to a lot of people, especially consumers. So consumers who heard that, and this was all across the news, consumers that heard that said, hey, if I have a choice between Kroger and Albertsons, and my prices have gone up 22% over the past couple of years, why am I going to Albertsons? So I think that hurt them. Now, the other thing that we've just heard from Kroger and McMullen is that they're going to do a stock buyback. So that says two things to me. Number one is they want to reward some of those stockholders who have put up with this for the past 2 years and maybe give them some money. The other thing, and I think that this is more likely, he wants to stockpile cash, because what he can do when he stockpiles cash is start price wars. There's no question that Albertsons is not going to be the way it is now, whether it's Ahold, where they divide it up and sell 100 stores to this one and 200 stores to this one. Whatever's going to happen, it's going to change the entire framework of grocery. So I think that McMullen is trying to stockpile cash because he's getting ready for some price wars. A lot there.
Definitely a lot there. And really going off on, what were you just talking about, kind of taking it back into just supermarkets in general. The judges for those in the injunctions, those cases that were ruled when they, issued injunctions in Oregon and Washington states, they did note that foods, that grocery stores, traditional supermarkets, very unique when compared to other forms of food retail. What kind of impact, now that all of this is happening, what kind of impact is this going to have on the grocery industry going forward? Can you talk more about that?
Well, I think, what Kroger was saying is that they needed to combine in order to fight Walmart, Costco, and Amazon. Obviously, that didn't hold a lot of weight when it came to these trials. I think what we're going to see is we're going to see mergers and acquisitions. And what surprised me a lot is that they didn't hold off on doing this until the new administration. Clearly, with the new FTC commissioner, clearly with a new administration, mergers and acquisitions are going to be easier to handle. So I frankly thought that they were going to delay it as much as they could till after January 20th and then see what happens. But obviously, Albertsons didn't feel that way. That's why they filed the $600 million suit plus damages, which are, is going to put the number probably well over $1 billion. And what wouldn't surprise me is that there was some other retailer, some other CEO that called up 𝗂𝗏𝘁 and said, hey, if your deal doesn't work through, talk to me. Let's do this. So that's one of the reasons that Albertsons wanted to get this over with, move on to the next phase of what that future of Albertsons is going to look like. Because keep in mind, not only is Albertsons higher priced, but Albertsons has almost gone bankrupt twice. Albertsons has old stores. They don't have, the most modern stores that are out there. So something has to happen with Albertsons for them to survive and hopefully even thrive.
Continuing to take a larger look at the grocery industry in general, everyone, there were a lot of people out there, fearing this merger, such a huge merger, really threatening, other grocery stores. But, I think a lot of people would agree that, traditional supermarkets, grocery stores, they've already been receiving a lot of competition from other forms of retail. C-stores, have been rising like crazy. Discount retailers, club stores. Phil, you mentioned about mergers and acquisitions, being a lot more smoother with the, dawn of a new, era in the administration with the FTC. Is that the key for grocery stores to keep up, to kind of merge or maybe, buy out other businesses? Is it to modernize? I mean, what do you think are things that, grocers need to keep top of mind if they want to really keep up with the competition in 2025?
I think it's everything that you said, but the category that I'm really looking at, that channel, are the C-stores that you mentioned. We take a look at C-stores, and during the pandemic, a lot of people went to convenience stores because, they were less crowded. They could get just about anything they needed, and a lot of them have kept on going. At the same time, what we've seen is convenience stores upping their quality, whether it's their store brands, whether it's their prepared foods. You have a lot of people going to Quick Trip and 𝗏𝗏 now that didn't before the pandemic and are very satisfied. Also, I think one of the problems that we've got in the industry is too many SKUs, too much proliferation. And there's certain retailers like Aldi who have proven that. Aldi has, 4 olive oils, an extra virgin one, a conventional one, an imported one, and an organic one. You go into a traditional store that has 40,000 SKUs, you'll see 100 different bottles of olive oil. Do we really need that much? And I think consumers are getting tired of that. And also retailers are tired of having to store that inventory. That costs them a lot of money. So I think we are going to see smaller stores. You look at what Whole Foods is now doing with their daily market format. And they're saying that, they want to roll that out nationwide. I think that the era of smaller stores is going to happen. And I think we are going to see some conventional stores buying convenience store chains, buying discount chains to be able to really compete effectively. Again, Aldi, number one on my list for being a great retailer that's formed, an unusual bond with Generation Z, with millennials, Generation X, who really are concerned about quality. And again, this consumer base doesn't have the stigma of store brands that our parents might have had. Store brands used to be, well, you can't afford the real thing, you'll get the store brand. Not anymore. A lot of the store brands that are out there now are the same or even exceed the quality of some national brands.
Very well said. Great insights from the supermarket guru, Phil Lempert. Phil, again, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
I'm Susan Choi. That's your FI News Review for this week. Be sure to check out all the great content that we've done by clicking on this playlist. See you next time and take care.